What up, everybody? Welcome to LaFlare Radio, episode 7. BT LaFlare here with my partners Hot Rod
What's good?
and Dee Greatest.
We back.
We're going to start off today with the NFL, talking about Jerry Jones. He recently threatened to sue the NFL if they extend Roger Goodell's contract after this season. It was revealed a couple of weeks ago that Goodell is asking in his next contract for a salary of $49.5 million a year, lifetime use of a private jet, and lifetime health insurance for his family. Later on, it came out that that request from Goodell came months ago. It was an outdated document, and it was wrong for Jones to release that to the owners and to the press. So that's been a big contingency point as the NFL accuses Jerry Jones of conduct detrimental in regard to Roger Goodell's contract talks. They've talked about the possibility of even making Jones sell the Cowboys, give up the franchise, or kicking out the team from the league as a whole. So I'll start with Rod. What are your thoughts on the situation?
There's no way in hell, dude, they're going to be able to kick out the Cowboys. They're the most valuable team in the world out of all the franchises. So I doubt they could remove them from the NFL without collateral damage. But at the same time, I think they could sort of push him out like the NBA did with Donald Sterling. But obviously it's not for the same reasons. But I can see them doing that if they really took a stand against Jerry Jones. But at the same time, like Roger Goodell, like trying to get $50 million a year in health insurance, but they can't even give the players health insurance or the benefits from all the mess ups and the concussion lawsuits and all that crap. Like that's insane. But going back to Jerry Jones, I think the only reason why he was doing all this because he was salty because Zeke was suspended. Had it not been Zeke and been another player on another team, Jerry Jones would have been all fine and backed up Roger Goodell.
That's what a lot of people are arguing. They're saying that the reason he has this major issue with Goodell is because of the ongoing issue with Zeke. We just found out yesterday that Zeke is going to take the suspension for the next 6 games. He's just going to eat it. So that's been sort of a big point that they're making against Jones.
Yeah, and it makes sense. I mean, the whole Ray Rice thing and Tom Brady thing, like he came out to the public and said he supported Roger Goodell. And now when Roger Goodell is, suspending one of his players, now he has a big problem with it. Like, come on, dude.
Yeah, I definitely can see that for sure. I was just happy to see that an owner took a stand against Goodell in general, because you look at where the league's at right now. Obviously, like we've said on past shows, it's been great this year because teams have put themselves in a more competitive position. But overall, Roger Goodell, when you look at his entire career, he's certainly done more harm than good. And the league would be in a much better place to bring in somebody else to kind of get a new viewpoint. And another point that Jones has made is maybe the commissioner has a little bit too much power in the league. Maybe more power should be distributed in other ways. I don't know how you would do that.
CBA. It's going to come down to CBA, and they're already talking about how there's going to be a huge lockout, and the players won't sign off on a new deal unless Roger Goodell gives up some of that power. But that's something that they should have handled the last CBA when they gave him that power, because Goodell got it because the players wanted less practices and like little stuff, and they didn't realize how big of a deal it would be to give Goodell that much power until now. So I can see them definitely trying to fix that the next CBA.
And you don't want that power to be transferred over to the owners either, I wouldn't think.
No, I probably wouldn't want that either. I think if they can sort of find like a balance like the NBA did, I think the NBA is like the perfect like organization in terms of like relinquishing some power to the players and some power to the owners and the commissioner. So if they can sort of, model after that, I think that they can, head in the right direction.
DG?
You know, after doing a little bit of research, I found out this is not Jerry Jones's first time suing the NFL. He sued them 21 years ago. He insisted that NFL owners had conspired a legal cartel, according to Sports Illustrated, to deny him a larger stake of revenue from the sale of Cowboys apparel. So, with that in mind, we just know Jerry Jones is all about Jerry Jones. We
No
saw it.
surprise there.
I know, right? We saw it earlier in the year. Um, there was just absolutely no support for Kaepernick. Even threatening to bench his players if they wanted to protest for police brutality amongst African Americans. But when Trump wants to disrespect the league, now Jerry Jones is like, ooh, something I could get up on because everybody's doing it. This gonna make me look good. Let me get on my knees and smile for the camera. Man, nah, man. I wish Jerry Jones can go. I just don't like the Cowboys at all. The fake America's team, you know how I feel about them. But to me, if Jerry Jones go, it's gonna cause a lot more damage than if like how Donald Sterling left the Clippers. To me, Jerry Jones has pull. He probably has more respect amongst owners than Goodell. And the repercussion of these actions, to me, is going to go beyond just the Cowboys franchise. I feel like a lot of owners might threaten to pull out or just do anything to damage the name of the NFL. And to me, the NFL is already declining. Like, I wouldn't buy any stock into it. Jerry Jones has leeway, and that really sucks. It really sucks. I don't like Goodell at all, but to me, between the two evils, I'm kind of hoping Goodell can pull this through.
Really? That's an interesting viewpoint.
The thing with
For
Goodell,
sure.
in my opinion, is even though from the public perception, like he's not the very best, he still brings in the dollars for the NFL. Like ever since he's taken over, like the values of all the franchises has grown. And so from the owner's perspectives and like the league executives and all that stuff, he's doing a fine job because at the end of the day it's money. When it comes to like the public perception and the PR stuff and the Ray Rice and all that other stuff, that's where he's really, didn't make the right decisions. That's really the downfall of the league is more public perception than it is dollar signs. Until like dollar signs start going down, I think that's when there'll be like a real push to get him out there. But he's still bringing in money and he's still making the right money moves for the league. So
What did he really have to do dynamically to do that, though? I would argue that almost any commissioner could come into the league and simply do their job, and inevitably the dollars are going to rise throughout the years because that's just the way it works. You look at the last 20 years in any sports, and as time goes on, they continue to grow in revenue.
but the thing is, like I mentioned earlier, how the Cowboys are the most valuable franchise. I believe. I don't know for a fact, but I doubt they were over any of those European teams
Mm-hmm.
in terms of franchise value. And now they're literally the most valuable franchise in the world. I mean, you got to give Goodell some credit in that aspect. But other than that, he's the worst commissioner.
Yeah, I totally agree. I have a question for you, BT. How we talked about earlier in the shows, about wanting a league to challenge the NFL in the weakest state in the perfect timing.
Yeah.
If Jerry Jones decided to pull the Cowboys, think about the potential damage that it can cause. Do you think he would have enough power to actually start a league and maybe even include the Cowboys if he could maintain the full rights and maybe overcome the NFL? Could he be the guy to do that?
I think that this is probably one of the biggest rifts between an owner and a commissioner in a long time. I wouldn't say NFL history, but just because I don't know and I don't want to make that statement without knowing. I think that he has the power and the means to do so. Do I think he'll take that risk? I don't think so. I think he's
Yeah.
Nah, not the
I
He's
think
too much of a business guy to do
yeah,
that.
exactly. And when you look at the risk versus the reward, I think the risk might be a little bit too big, but I definitely think he would have the power to do something like
Oh,
that.
for sure. And I
For
know
sure.
he has, the people behind him with the dollars too.
And he could possibly bring some other teams with him.
Yeah.
I'm not sure which ones, but
I mean, him and, the Patriots owner, Rob Kraft, they're boys. And I'm sure there's like a group of like 6 or 7 NFL owners that are just like real tight,
yeah.
that are like the top.
But no matter how tight they are with him, if he would have the balls to make a decision like that, would they even if they are tight, that's still, like we said, a major risk. So even if he's willing to take that risk, who knows if the other owners will as well, no matter how close of friends they are.
Well, I'll say this. If he pulled out and others followed, especially the Patriots, if the league lost the Patriots and the Cowboys, they're damn near finished.
It's true.
But unfortunately, I don't feel like anybody, including them, can make American football reach the heights of popularity as it's been
In our lifetime.
In our lifetime,
Yeah.
yeah.
In our immediate lifetime. I would
Yeah.
say.
Yeah. And
Yeah,
that's
so
why.
it might just ruin the sport,
Yeah.
to be honest.
Well, you look at the NFL, and it's been so long since anything like that has happened, you almost look at it as something that's impossible. The NFL looks like something that's too big to fail. I was also just thinking now, if those teams pull out, they're going to have to distribute their players within the new teams because they can't just keep all of their players because it'll be a major drop-off between those teams that pulled out of the NFL and the other pop-up teams that you build to try to create a full league.
Mm-hmm.
And those teams aren't going to want to distribute their players. I wouldn't think so. And the players obviously are going to have to take a pay cut, so they're not going to be with that either. They're going to probably look to jump back into the NFL to get into free agency or whatever. I mean, there's just a lot of different things. I'm sure if we had more time to think about it, we'd think of more things too. But it's a compelling idea, and I wish
It all depends on
was
how
possible.
many teams are with Jerry Jones. Like if Jerry Jones decides, oh, I want to leave, and 15 other teams decide with him,
Yeah, if he could bring half the NFL, then
Well, yeah, that's the whole thing. But I don't think he could bring half the NFL. I think at max it might be like 6 or 7.
yeah. Well, it could be a domino effect. I mean,
Yeah.
if you see 7 other owners are pulling out, you'd be like, well, you know what, this might be possible. And then you get to 10, and the owners that were kind of on the fence that, would be 11 and 12. And then the other owners that were even more on the fence start getting more into it.
Mhm.
So you just never know.
Yeah.
But right now, it's looking like there's more against Jerry Jones than there is with him because there haven't really been a lot of owners that have vocally stepped up to support him right now, even though he says he has the support of half the NFL owners. So if they're not even willing to vocally step up and support him now, I doubt they'd support him in a move like that. But moving on to a little bit more with Goodell, the Kaepernick collusion case, we're a little late on it since we didn't have the podcast last week, but it's still ongoing. There hasn't been a lot of news over this past week. We're waiting to see what comes up. A lot of the owners, including the Texans owner, Patriots owner, Goodell, been forced to give up their cell phones in deposition. So we're waiting to see what happens with that. But as the weeks go on, I would definitely argue that the case gets stronger, and I'm not sure what the result will be. He definitely has a case, without
for
a doubt.
Sure. Oh, for sure. I mean, even like with the whole Texans situation, they lose Deshaun Watson, who's literally the same type of quarterback that Kaepernick is, and they go and sign a guy that hasn't played since 2011.
Yeah, and Packers?
Yeah, and the Packers as well. Like, they lost Aaron Rodgers and Brett Hundley. Yeah, they've had him for a few years, and they want to see what he can do, but they're really serious about making playoffs. And
Well, basically, I think it's safe to say that Kaepernick's career in the NFL is over. Would you say so?
yeah,
Going
Yeah.
with this case, this probably just
and
sealed it.
especially with
He might be able to get some sort of damages rewarded or if he wins the case, but I definitely think that there's no way at this point he'll play again in the NFL.
Yeah, and especially with the sort of press he's getting outside of the NFL, sort of shunning him to the NFL and those owners.
Mhm.
He was just recently named GQ Citizen of the Year,
Mm-hmm.
and so
And
if
I was
he's
gonna,
getting that type of stuff outside and he's already not, in the NFL, those NFL owners are definitely not going to be willing to sign him. And
Mhm.
the one thing I want to clear up is a lot of general managers and presidents of like the teams, they want to sign him, but they have to okay it through the owners. It's really the owners that are really like saying no because they don't want to go through the backlash that they can get
Yeah.
before signing him and stuff like that. So
And that's why the owners are really the ones that are targeted in this collusion case. It's not really anybody else. It's the owners and Goodell. But yeah, I was going to ask you guys, Kaepernick got Citizen of the Year for GQ, and there's a lot of backlash for that. A lot of people were talking about J.J. Watt after he raised all that money for Harvey. There were some other names that came up as well. So I'll start with DG because you're usually the most well-versed of the three of us in this kind of stuff. And I just want to hear, what's your response to the kind of people that would argue that someone like J.J. Watt should have gotten it over Kaepernick?
No disrespect to J.J. Watt, but they hating. They just don't want Kaepernick to get that shine, to be honest. I refuse to discredit any work J.J. Watt done for the hurricane relief. I get that. But if I'm going to compare a national disaster to a national uproar when it involves crime against citizens, you're going to have to choose the bigger fight here. And Kaepernick been doing it longer. J.J. Watt didn't lose his job helping. He was a man of the community. It was great, but Kaepernick made a bigger sacrifice. And he's still fighting to this day. And it's not like Kaepernick didn't use his own money to go with this fight either. He has. He's been a man of his word. He's been donating to charity. He's been speaking. He's been answering everything thrown at him. He hasn't shined away from the limelight. JJ came through at a moment of distress, but it was a moment. What Colin is doing is something that's been going on for lifetimes, And as soon as people try to push it away, try to iron things out, make it seem like things are okay, here he comes bringing it back like, no, you cannot ignore this anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And now he involved troops, owners, presidents, multiple media outlets, other players, so his co-workers, and made an entire discussion, made emotions come all over the place, and even attracted outlets that not even related to football, but for the fact that he just made so much of a movement. He's bigger than his jersey. And for that, I would have to go with Colin, man.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I hate how in a situation like this, we start pitting different people against each other. Like, you can't take away what J.J. Watt did. And there's a lot of other things that J.J. Watt has done beyond just that. And, like, what I don't understand is it's a really great award to give out to somebody, to say that they're Citizen of the Year for GQ, one of the most popular magazines in the country. Why can't we just support that and what he's done rather than saying, oh, this person should have got it, or, whatever? It just continues the rift and it continues the separation.
But that's because people still disagree.
I know.
There's still people that's against Colin. There's people that don't want to see his point. There's people who don't want him in the limelight, don't want him to get the glory that he's getting for his actions. So, of course, they're going to try to find anybody to try to take it away from him and make a case that seems acceptable, but in reality, it's just wrong.
Yeah, and going off what you said, I mean, we've all heard the term, like, someone can be blinded by love. I feel like the people that disagree and continue to disagree are just blinded by privilege, honestly.
Yeah.
Because it's one of those things, like, my guy, Shan Sharp, always mentions this. People relate more to J.J. Watt because anyone can go through a national disaster. So, like, anyone. You could be a billionaire. You could be a poor man. You could be middle class. A natural disaster can mess up your house. It can mess up whatever. But a privileged white male is not going to go through what an average black male would go through with a police officer or something, some of that nature. So they don't feel for it because that's not something that would ever happen to them. You know what I mean? So that's why I feel like they're blinded by privilege rather than a natural disaster, because natural disaster doesn't see who you are.
And ain't the average black male. It's the black male.
In general. But just to make that point.
Yeah.
And that's really just, and J.J. Watt, he did that for Houston, but Colin Kaepernick's doing this for a whole country. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Houston's only a speck on the bigger spectrum. You know what I'm saying? So I believe Kaepernick, deserved to be Citizen of the Year, and even if J.J. Watt got it, I believe he would have been deserving of it as well. So I just don't understand why it's such a big deal to, make, like you said earlier, to just make like an argument of this. Like, you should be happy for whoever got it because they both deserve it. Honestly.
Exactly. And, it's not the last time we'll talk about it. I'm sure we talked about it before, and I'm sure that even if Kaepernick wins the collusion case, it still won't change anything. There will still be people that are arguing against it. But we'll see what happens with that. Moving on to the next topic. It's kind of funny that we'll even discuss it. We're discussing it just because of how outlandish it is. Miko Grimes, the wife of Buccaneers cornerback Brent Grimes, appeared on a radio show a couple weeks ago on Revolt TV and claimed that the Oakland Raiders offensive line intentionally wanted to let Derek Carr suffer an injury. Obviously, that's something that people had to address, so caught a decent amount of buzz. She said, in quote, "The reason Derek Carr got injured is because of the Raiders' offensive line allowed him to get injured, because he was against them protesting," she explained. And they had a fight in that Monday night game in Washington. They were fighting in the locker room, and that's the only all-black offensive line in the NFL is the Raiders. So first off, that game was a Sunday night. It wasn't a Monday night. She also said, so they were in the locker room. Derek Carr is a Bible thumper to the fullest. He was basically trying to force the players to read the Bible before the game and do all this stuff. And they were like, no, that's you. And so he was so upset about when the whole offensive line said they were going to kneel. He was like, no, you're not kneeling. This is America. You're going to stand for the flag. And they got in a fight in the locker room. So when they came out to play, they basically had a plan. Basically, this is fake news, I would say, because he didn't actually even get hurt in that game in Washington. It was the next week that he got hurt. And it wasn't like, if you watch the play, it wasn't just an offensive lineman letting a defensive lineman go. He got hit in the back, and it was like a helmet to the back of to his back. So she's been known for saying outlandish things before.
Yeah,
so
she got her husband out of the Dolphins.
Basically, right? She was talking about Tannehill.
Yep.
And I think I remember on Hard Knocks she was on there, like, just swearing up a storm. But
as usual.
Yeah, so
Who is Miko Grimes? Other than
that's her entire identity. She's Brent Grimes' wife.
Like, is she like a TV personality or anything?
Nah.
I don't know anything else about her.
Just a wife.
Yeah, just a wife that, because of the age that we live in, when they say these kind of things, it ends up going viral. But it's something that we had to address, just because of how crazy it would be if it were true. Do you guys have any thoughts on the topic?
Those who control their tongue will have a long life. Opening your mouth can ruin everything. That's all I got to say. Shout out to Derek Carr.
Hey, I'm with it. So moving on to the next topic. The Eagles acquired Jay Ajayi from the Dolphins for a 4th-round pick, a steal, as far as I can see it. And not only that, but in his first game with the Eagles, 17 snaps and he had 8 carries for 77 yards and a touchdown. So quite a showing. They had a bye this last Sunday, but they said that he'll have an increased workload going forward after that performance. How much better does this make the Eagles, and does this really set them up for, a playoff run and possible Super Bowl appearance or win, Rod?
I think that, this propels them into the Super Bowl contention. I mean, they already were because they have the league's best record, but this was a huge move. I wouldn't say for the run game in general, but for Carson Wentz. They're going to take some pressure off of him and run the ball a little more, get defenses to respect the run a little more, and open up some passing lanes for Carson. And DG and I were talking about this, pre-show. Man, Carson Wentz is the next it. Like, he's that next, like, stud quarterback, like, Hall of Fame future type quarterback. And it's crazy to see where he's gotten, or to see where he is from where he's from, like South Dakota, I believe, or North Dakota or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't get recruited by any Division I teams, and D2 or D1 AA, got drafted number 2 overall, and now he's probably the next best quarterback in our league. Like, that's insane. But this Jay Ajayi definitely completes them as a team from an offensive standpoint.
DG?
This doesn't just set them up for this year. They're setting up for a dynasty. Jay Ajayi, as young as he is, only been in his 3rd season, 24. That is such a beautiful move. And I know he's really happy to get out of Miami. And that's probably why Jay Ajayi gave him his first touchdown of his season.
True.
Just thinking about how young this core is, because Alshon Jeffrey isn't old. He's a veteran, but he's an old. He's going to be there for a good minute as well. I feel like this can probably be the best NFC team from year to year since we've seen from the Seahawks. And I don't think they will phase out like how the Seahawks kind of did. I mean, I know they're good, but nobody's afraid of the Seahawks anymore.
They're
I don't
old
think
now.
so. You see what I'm
is.
saying?
Yeah, like when they were in their primes, like when they were coming up, like they were like what the Eagles are now, And that's usually how it goes when teams are good for a stretch. Like the Patriots are the anomaly, but they usually go through, like, they're young, they build together, they're really good, and then they start to get old because, like, they've won so much, teams don't want to let those players go, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
So that's where the Seahawks are now, but
And
continue.
and now it's just, instead of a Marshawn Lynch team, it's a Russell Wilson team, but it's like a whole different dynamic. But to me, the Eagles, they're gonna have a consistent identity. They know who their best player is, which is Carson Wentz. They're young. The offense is powerful. Like you said, the rushing offense wasn't even an issue anyway, but to get Jay Ajayi is just gonna help them out even much more. They're hot. And looking at the rest of the NFC, I don't see any team excuse me. I don't see any team now or in the future that could really hang with them. And that's including Carolina.
Mm-hmm. And that was the next topic I'm going to move on to. Rounding out the NFC, there's probably only 3 other teams that I would say have a fighting chance to go up against this Eagles team. It's the Rams, who are also pretty young, very well-rounded, as we talked about last week, but the Rams would certainly be the underdog in that one. And then moving down to the NFC South, either the Saints, who have been a real surprise this year, and the Panthers. The Panthers.
Don't forget the Vikings.
See, I'm not really thinking the Vikings.
Not big on the Vikings either.
I mean, I do think that the Vikings are going to win the NFC North, but can they compete in a playoff game against a team like the Eagles or the Saints or even the Rams? I don't think so.
It all depends on if Teddy B can look anything like he did before he got injured, then that's like the one piece that they're missing because they have a
That's
good
true.
running game. They
That's
have
true.
decent O-line now. Diggs and Thielen, they're good receivers.
Yeah.
They've really grown.
Mm-hmm.
And their defense is one of the top defenses in the league. So they can, if Teddy B can just manage the game and get some points, then their defense can really, do the rest of the work. That's not a team I really would just leave off.
Okay, so
Right.
we'll throw them into the conversation as well. So with all those teams in mind, take a look at the Panthers because they've gotten a lot of attention these last couple weeks, and I think it might be just because everybody wants them to be good because they're supposed to be good, but they are 7-3 now, second in the NFC South behind the 7-2 New Orleans Saints. They've won their last 3 after a rough loss to the Bears, 17-3. They went out and beat the Buccaneers 17-3, beat the Falcons 20-17, and obviously thrashed the Dolphins 45-21 this last weekend. McCaffrey's finally starting to come around, a major disappointment so far this season until these last few games. And Cam's starting to really look like himself again after quite a while of being just somewhat above average. So, Rod, we'll go to you first. Do you think the Panthers have a shot at doing something in the playoffs this year based on where they're at now?
Man, don't let Scam Newton fool you guys. Scam Newton. Like, this guy, I would hate to be a Panthers fan because when it comes to national TV, Scam looks like he's MVP every season. He should be the best player in the league, et cetera, et cetera. But when you get those Sunday afternoon games that aren't on national TV, that are just on Fox or CBS, you get the Cam or the Scam that goes, 50% completion rating, 1 touchdown, 3 picks, and they'll lose to teams like the Bears that they have no business losing to.
Mm-hmm.
But then when you get him on national TV, he turns into, MVP Cam, throws 3 touchdowns, rushes for 1, he's dabbing, he's Supermaning in the camera, smiling, doing all that stuff. But I'm not buying the Panthers. And to me, the Panthers are one Luke Kuechly concussion away from losing out the rest of the season because to me, he's the best player on that team. And without him and that defense, the Panthers can't really do anything, honestly.
Yeah.
Luke is better than Cam?
Honestly, I
Luke
think
is
that's
more
a fair argument.
Luke
It's
is
at least
consistent,
considerable.
and when you actually watch the Panthers play, he literally calls out the other team's offensive plays like every single play. Like, it's ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
It's crazy. He's, to me, easily the best linebacker in the NFL, and that's a luxury that not many teams have. Like a guy like Kuechly, and he's just overshadowed to me, honestly.
Yeah, I'm not going to disagree. I'm just shocked because I've never heard that claim before.
Well, you heard it from me first.
Hey, shout outs to you. I'll have to look. Well, it's harder to compare an offensive defensive player anyway.
Well, Cam obviously is a quarterback, so he's more important in terms of from top to bottom of the team. But there's games where Cam's inconsistent as hell, and Kuechly's there, and that defense is there, and they bail him out, And I'm sure it's the opposite as well, but it's I bet you that Cam is way more inconsistent than Kuechly is. And last year when Kuechly got hurt, that's where their downfall was. And Cam was there all last year. So, in my opinion, I feel like Kuechly is the more important player for the Panthers.
I mean, dude's an animal. I love that guy. I love the way he plays. I would say he's one of the top 10, if not top 5 defensive players in the league.
No question.
So, yeah, and if he gets another concussion, that might not just be the end of his season. That might be the end of his career.
Yeah, he's had like 3 or 4 or maybe 5. I know he's had 1 or 2 already this season.
Yeah, and it's a result of the way he plays. He's just a really aggressive player, and while it's a really good thing, it also has its downfalls as well. You got to be able to protect your body. So the Panthers have a pretty average schedule for the rest of the season. They're going up against the Saints in 2 weeks. They got the Jets this weekend, which shouldn't be a problem for them. Then they'll have the Vikings.
See,
and
that's where Scam's going to get you. Shouldn't be
Hey,
a problem
if
for
they
them.
lose against the Saints and the Vikings, you can pack it in. That's going to be it. Those win. Those are
Or the
games they must
Jets.
win.
The Jets aren't a team you should just,
Yeah,
sleep on.
that's true. The Jets are.
And
It
that's
was
what I'm
wrong for
saying.
me to say that for
And
sure.
that's what I'm saying. Scam. That's where scam's gonna get you.
And they got the Buccaneers and the Falcons to end the season. So that Panthers Falcons game might have some playoff implications for both teams.
Yeah, I wouldn't even talk about the Falcons. They're so disappointing to me right now.
Yeah.
For them to be 5-4, 2-2 at home is ridiculous.
Yeah, you just never know though. They could pull it off. But moving on to a couple weeks ago, Sunday was just a brawl. Several players getting into fights. We'll start with AJ Green and Jalen Ramsey. Just real quick, Rod, what'd you think about that?
Jalen Ramsey, Florida State guy.
Whoop, whoop.
He loves to talk trash, and he gets into it with everyone he plays. So it's nothing new on his part. And I mean, he's gotten into it with Steve Smith, probably
Mhm.
future Hall of Famer. DeAndre Hopkins, like they were getting into it. They're division rivals. They play twice a year. And now this with AJ Green. What's really crazy about this is everyone after this, everyone has been saying like AJ Green's like one of the most quiet guys, like calm, collected guy. Like you never really see this out of him.
Mm-hmm.
And for Jalen Ramsey to get into his head like that, I think that speaks more to Jalen Ramsey and how good he is and the way he talks trash and can back it up.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe because AJ's been so frustrated with this 3-6 season in Cincinnati, probably everything was just boiling, and I'm sure Jalen was just telling him the whole entire time about how he's not making the playoffs. But I never really got the point of punching helmets or punching through helmets. Like,
Yeah.
is that a pride
was,
thing for
that
them?
was stupid
Like,
because he could have easily
broke
broken
his
his hand.
hand,
Yeah.
yeah.
And you're a receiver. Like,
Yeah.
can't wear a club. It's not like he's a D lineman. Can
Yeah.
wear a club.
These receivers to me are just so thin skinned. They're these big divas.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really easy to get into a guy's head.
He
that
definitely
has
got
that
some
kind of
Odell
mentality.
syndrome that game.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Odell syndrome.
Yeah, I guess you can call it that.
but can't nobody give a beat down like Andre Johnson.
Oh no.
Oh yeah,
That
that's something
definitely like
different.
was like a reminder of that like moment. Like
Yeah.
the Andre Johnson.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
Finnegan.
mean, but Jalen Ramsey, man, I kind of fostered a new love for that guy after that situation. Just I never really paid attention to his trash talking. He's probably one of the number one trash talkers in the
Oh
league.
yeah. And the thing is he's only in his second year.
Yeah,
And
that's true.
He's getting into all these guys that are vets, like top of the line receivers,
Yeah.
and he's doing a good job. He's clamping them up too. It's not like he's talking trash and he's getting burnt. Like he's clamping up these receivers as well. So
That
I have a lot of
defense,
respect for him.
that Jaguars defense, led by Ramsey, could propel them into the playoffs this year.
Yeah.
No doubt.
And
I think they're a quarterback away from being Super Bowl contenders, honestly,
it's
because
true.
their defense is that good. I think they have the best defense in the league, honestly. Like
Yeah,
on
no
paper.
question. Yeah.
It's amazing to see, how far they've come from a few years ago
Mhm.
when they were by far, bottom of the league, worst attendance in the league. They've really come a long way.
I have a funny question for you. Like you were saying, like a few years ago, like how crazy is it gonna be in a couple years when like the Jaguars are good, the Rams are looking,
I
like
know.
they're gonna
I
be like
know.
a dynasty.
And
Teams like that we used to grow up on that
Being
like
terrible.
even the Raiders. The Raiders like they weren't good until recently.
yeah, everybody's getting better except for the Browns.
Oh, I didn't want to bring them up. I'm
It's true.
sorry.
No, it's the truth, man.
But the thing is, the Browns do it to themselves, and we don't even have to,
The owners do it to the Browns, is what it is. It's the
we don't have to
ownership.
get into that.
at the
We
end
could
of
do a
the
whole
day.
show on the Browns and their woes.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. So we'll move on to the other fight. Mike Evans against your guy Lattimore, Rod. A major cheap shot after Lattimore pushed Winston, a game that the Bucks were not even remotely in. Winston was messing around with Lattimore. I don't know if Lattimore was on their sideline talking crap to start with or what,
He probably was, and Winston, didn't like it. And Winston really provoked Lattimore into pushing him. Like he
Yeah.
pushed him.
Tickled the back of his neck or
Yeah,
whatever
yeah.
it was.
Pushed him back of the helmet, and Lattimore shoved him, and then
Evans
Evans
comes out of nowhere
yeah.
and just lays him out.
yeah, dude, I almost jumped out into the TV, dude. And tried to fight Mike Evans. You
Seriously.
can't be touching my guy like that.
Some more wide receiver diva syndrome.
Hey,
DG, you have
Lattimore
any-
was clamping him up all game, and I witnessed that. Like,
Yeah.
he was getting clamped
Well,
up. I think that's what it was.
That's probably was what it was. He said, "Oh, I saw my quarterback getting hit."
Nah,
but-
dude, you were mad. You were getting locked up.
And then I forget who was announcing that, but he was like, down by however much. It's not the time to be a tough guy. Like,
Yeah, that was so funny.
Oh my gosh.
That was so funny. Yeah, he was like, "You're down 33. You shouldn't be acting like a tough guy. You should have been acting like a tough guy when it was close, et cetera, et cetera." But yeah, dude. I mean, I'm really glad that Lattimore didn't get hurt from that because he's a huge part of the Saints' success.
Mhm.
And for the Saints to have two rookies that are as great as him and Kamara, like, that's huge. That's crazy.
So that'll just about do it for the NFL. For the sake of time, we'll head on over to NBA news before we conclude our sports segment for the week. Top news of the day, LiAngelo Ball returns from China after being held there with a few of his teammates after stealing some Louis Vuitton shades. I guess supposedly Donald Trump had a lot to do with their return. Said they were bound for 10 years in prison in China. I can't imagine that would be enjoyable. Surprisingly, LaFlare didn't really have a lot to say about the situation throughout the whole thing. They returned yesterday and made their statements. They thanked Trump for his time. Trump tweeted out yesterday morning around 6:30 a.m., "To the 3 UCLA basketball players, I say you're welcome. Go out and give a big thank you to the president of China who made your release possible, and have a great life. Be careful. There are many pitfalls on the long and winding road of life." He also tweeted, "Do you think the 3 UCLA basketball players will say thank you, President Trump? They were headed for 10 years in jail." Some Chinese officials that were asked about the situation said that they were pretty confident that Chinese police went through the normal procedures and there wasn't very much influence from the Chinese president. I think that's something they probably would have said either way. I think it's possible that Trump could have had some pull there. He was visiting the country during that time. But what do you guys think of the situation? I mean, LiAngelo Ball, the family is on the come up. It's not like they don't have the money. They're selling, $300-$400 shoes. It's just a bonehead mistake when you're in a position like that, and hopefully he learns from it. But we'll start with DG. What's your thoughts on the situation?
Well, when you're young, you don't really think about what you actually have. Like, we see because we're older, we're not teenagers. We know what the family's doing for them and what they're getting. But at that age, you're at the point where when you see something you like it, you want it. So there's ways to do things, and I'm sure he knew what he was doing was wrong. He probably just was like, "I'm not gonna get caught." I personally believe he wouldn't have done it if he thought he could have got 10 years. Because do we get 10 years for stealing some shades over here?
No, definitely not.
Definitely not. So I know he was probably just thanking Trump, kissing feet and all of that. And
Yeah.
honestly, this is the first thing Trump did right this whole entire time. in my opinion. He almost took my credit back because of that stupid tweet, the second one that you read. I'm like, that's not even necessary. But whatever, you still got us. So
He's got to give himself a pat on the back.
Yeah, of course.
He always does.
Always does. LiAngelo, out of all the three, I thought I wouldn't say he was the most mature, but I thought he was more so on the level as Lonzo. I thought he was level-headed. You know, I'm really looking at LaMelo as the hardest. I thought this would be something that he would have done.
And that's the thing.
That's true.
See, that's the thing. I think LiAngelo doesn't get as much press as the other two.
Because
And
he's just not as good.
it could be that
It is, yeah, it is that. He's not.
he's not as good as the other two, but at the same time, I just feel like he's not getting as much attention as the other two. And this
Because
is definitely some way to get
yeah.
attention. And
Oh, so you're saying it's a cry for attention,
I think
like
it
the
could
little
be.
kid that acts out in school because his
Yeah.
parents don't
I
pay
think
attention to him.
that's what it is, but he didn't understand the collateral damage to it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that would be immature to the max. If
I
that's the
totally
case.
disagree with that.
Because listen, I honestly think he probably thought, oh, we're in China, they're probably not as crazy. Like the legal system is probably not as crazy as the U.S. So, oh, if I steal this, oh, nothing's gonna happen. I'll just get out of it, type of thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, I guess so. I would hope he wouldn't think that because Chinese government is
Because think
much
about
more.
Why would he?
serious.
Why would he steal shades from Louis Vuitton when he got a Ferrari for his birthday?
Like I
See,
said, he's a teenager.
It baffles me as well.
You don't know
But,
what
Like
you
he got a
getting.
Ferrari. Like it's not like some kid that grew up in the hood that saw some Louis V's that was trying to take it. Like he got a Ferrari for his birthday,
Yeah.
like a couple months ago. Like not 2 years, 3 years, a couple months ago.
We're not gonna sit here and act like rich kids ain't selfish though.
No, I understand that. I understand that, but he clearly has had the funds to get it. That's what I'm trying to say.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you both make pretty good points, and who knows why he did it. He probably just wanted some shades, didn't want to pay for them at the end of the day.
Honestly, that's what I think.
But yeah, he's suspended from the UCLA team indefinitely, along with the two other players, and they're going through the normal legal process with that. Moving on to the Boston Celtics have been, I guess I wouldn't say it a surprise, but after the Hayward injury, certainly they've gone 13-0 since losing their first two games, first to the Cavaliers and then to the Milwaukee Bucks. Mostly thanks to some of these rookies, Jason Tatum stepping up, Kyrie just performing to the max. Rod, what are your thoughts? Can they continue this sort of role?
Yeah, I think they can because they're young. And when you're young and when you're in old teams, like old teams have more experience, but it's harder for older teams to give 100% effort on a night-to-night basis. And with this team being so young and Kyrie sort of being their leader, and he's young too, like they can give, good effort every single night. And with guys like Tatum and Jaylen Brown trying to, make a name for themselves, like they're going to come out and play hard every night because they haven't reached the success of a Kyrie.
Mm-hmm.
And with Kyrie leading them, he can, help them, accomplish that. And the Celtics, they're a scary team, man. And if they had Hayward, I don't know if this would, if they would play as well. But without him, it definitely gave them, like, some extra motivation and another boost, to come out and play every night. I think they're, a legit big away from being, like, one of the best teams in the league. Like, they could compete with, like, even Golden State with a legit big.
Well, hey, we're playing Golden State tonight at 7, so I was going to point that out. That's going to be quite a game.
Yeah, both those teams are on winning streaks, so somebody's streak is going to end tonight. I have to mention Brad Stevens. I forgot to mention Brad Stevens. He's a huge part of why they are where they at right now. And I know on the, preseason show I mentioned, we're going to see how Brad Stevens is with the star player because he's never really had, like, a superstar player like Kyrie. I mean, he had Isaiah Thomas.
That's the same level, in my opinion.
Same level, but I also said with Hayward too, but he doesn't have Hayward. But I think he has to, get a lot of credit because Kyrie was one of the worst defenders in the league, and they lose Avery Bradley, and they basically swap Avery Bradley and Isaiah Thomas for Kyrie and Jason Tatum, who aren't really good defenders. They don't really have any real rim protectors, and they have the best defense in the league. So I really, have to give credit to Brad Stevens.
No doubt. And as I was getting at, Boston is just a great team because they found a way to win even without Kyrie. Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum, to me, that's going to be a win combo that's going to make some noise. for the foreseeable future. I just see them getting better. I see them in the future. Their PPG is going to go up. Looking at Jason Tatum, for him to be a rookie and his PR to be 17 to me is magnificent. Kyrie is setting himself up for MVP votes next year. This year, the race is a little thick for him. But once he gets Gordon Hayward back, I'm sure his numbers are going to look better. The team, the way that they're playing, adding an all-star, I'm just going to assume that they're going to be even better than what they are. I'm not going to say the East is bad. I won't say that. Because looking at the West records and looking at how the East are,
I think the
it's
East,
not that much different. I think the competition is finally even. Having said that, Boston is just better. They're better than the rest of the East. Until Cleveland decides not to suck, then they can really say that they're the best and that they're the favorites right now. Now, they're going to probably have some issues with Detroit. I cannot believe I said that. But at the same time, I like Boston in that series because looking at the matchup with Kyrie and Reggie Jackson, I'm going to take Kyrie. Now, Drummond, as Rob pointed to me earlier in the shows, that Detroit can cause a team like Boston some issues because they didn't have a big. It's just ironic that these are the top two teams in the East now. But at the same time, I don't think Drummond is going to dominate enough to the point where he could lead them over. So looking at Boston, man, 6-1 at home, 7-1 on the road, 9-2 in the conference, sweeping the division so far. This is the team.
Yeah. I would almost argue that the Hayward, you hate to see it happen to Hayward, of course. But losing Hayward, we'll just say losing Hayward, helped them in a way because you give guys like Tatum and Jaylen Brown, you force them to step up, you force them to get those minutes, and even beyond them, more players are forced to get those rebounds, take those shots, and it gives them the opportunity to grow and mesh together. And then when Hayward gets back, it's going to be scary.
And he still might be able to come back towards the end of the season. So if they can acclimate him and, get him ready, then they can be, scary in the playoffs.
Yeah.
But two questions. One, do they need Gordon Hayward?
Yes, I still do think that. Because when it comes to the playoff, you're going to need more than one guy. Ask James Harden on the Rockets.
Yeah. Well, even though the Cavaliers have really struggled here early on, you still have to respect the fact that they have a lot of guys that can score.
Yeah.
And
that's without IT.
When IT gets back, I truly think that as a team, they're going to come around because with a guy like IT, just like Steph Curry with the Warriors, you have to respect him. You have to respect his shot. They don't have a point guard that can shoot like that right now. Like, not at all. So he's going to pull a lot of that defense. It's going to change things a lot. And it's going to open up shots for other players.
But IT isn't going to change Cleveland's defense.
No, he won't change the defense.
Defenders
Yeah.
in the league. And honestly, that's been Cleveland's downfall.
True. That's a good point. That's just going to have to come around. But that's an effort thing. And I think they have the ability, but they're just not used to putting out that kind of effort these last couple of years unless they're in the playoffs. So they're just going to have to learn how to do that. They're just going to have to man up and put out the team as a whole is going to have to learn how to put out consistent effort night to night.
And I think Coach LeBron needs to, figure out the defense and change the scheme because assistant Coach Lou isn't doing it. They need to figure out what they are, like their defensive schemes and stuff like that. Because like DG was saying, when IT gets back, their defense isn't going to get any better. It might get worse than what it is now. He'll be able to score and get buckets and create for others, but if he's given what he's getting, like, there's really no impact.
Well, let's move over to the Cavs. Some big news, obviously, in New York the other night. LeBron had quite a game. He's crowned the King of New York by some, not a phrase taken lightly by New Yorkers, I'm sure. Really got into it with their center, Ains Kanter, Cantor said after the game, "You call yourself king or whatever, but you can't just mess with a rookie like that. If you're going to mess with someone, go mess with the grown men. I'll die for my teammates. Whatever happens, I got my teammates back because I see this team, this organization like my family. Nobody is going to mess with that." And he also said something about LeBron not being the king or something.
Yeah, he said he could be whatever he calls himself, king, queen,
Queen,
princess, or whatever.
Yes.
And I think LeBron
Whatever,
had
we're
the
going to fight,
perfect-
and nobody's going to punk us.
Yeah, LeBron had the perfect response to that to me.
He said, "I'm the king, my wife is the queen, and my daughter's a princess, so we've got all three covered." Yeah, I mean, it was a good response. So LeBron, huge game there, down by 23, 15 to start the fourth quarter. LeBron, a huge part of that comeback. The team as a whole scored 43 points in the final quarter. And that's good. That's big. It's a big performance for LeBron. The issue is that if they're going to win games, he's sort of being forced to do that every night. And Draymond Green said yesterday, those superhuman powers aren't going to last too long if he's forced to play 40 games every single night. So, Rod, my question to you is, what do? Do they try to pull back on those minutes and possibly force losses, or what's the next step? Can LeBron maintain 40 points a night?
Well, it's hard for a player coach to keep himself out of a game because we all know LeBron's the head coach of Cleveland, and assistant coach Lou is just there just to, collect some checks.
You are so disrespectful.
But other than that, I just think they just got to figure out, like, they have the players to, not force LeBron to play 40 minutes a game. But because everything's so centered around LeBron and the offense is so centered around LeBron, I feel like when he's not in the game, it's like no one really knows what to do. Like when you have a guy like K-Love who's giving you 30 points and 20 rebounds in Minnesota, you don't think he can play for 6 minutes at a time without LeBron and get you buckets, or a guy like D Wade, or even Jeff Green's been looking really good for them. But they have all these guys that, can create on their own at times. Like, you just need them for 8-minute stretch. Just here, hold this lead, or don't lose any points for 8 minutes at a time, because LeBron's not going to sit more than 8 minutes.
Yeah.
And if you get him to sit 8 minutes in each half, then he's playing 32 minutes. That's a big difference from 40 or 42. I just don't get it. Maybe it's the substitution patterns. Maybe that's what it is. Like, I haven't watched enough Cavs games to really, dissect why they can't leave LeBron on the bench. But in the games that I have watched, it's like when he's not in the game, it's like they don't even get the good shots that they were getting when he wasn't there because of the attention that he grabs.
Yeah, and I think, because I've obviously watched a lot of Cavaliers games the last couple of years, they are so built around LeBron. You want to build around your star, but every single player on that team is on that team based on how they complement LeBron James. And I almost think they've gone too far with that. They're just so built around LeBron that they literally can't field 5 guys. They can't put 5 guys on the court without him out there because the entire team is built around him. Back when they won, it was basically the starting team with LeBron, and then we called it, like, I forget what it was, but like LeBron and the trash squad, which was him and the bench.
Mm-hmm.
Even the bench most of the time featured LeBron as well. So even back then he was playing crazy minutes, but I guess what I'm saying is when you build a team around a guy like that and you don't really define the different roles, this is sort of the product that you get.
So, quick question. If LeBron, knock on wood, got hurt and he was, forced to miss like the rest of the season, do the Cavs even sniff like a fight to get into the playoffs, or are they just going to tank it out and have 2 top 10 picks?
I want to hear what DG has to say, but I would say no. But, like, at the same time, you're like, you look at the roster.
Exactly.
And you're like, yes, they should. I mean, Kevin Love and Isaiah Thomas alone should be enough to be able to do that, along with what was supposed to be the deepest bench in the league, one of the deepest other than the Warriors. You still have Derrick Rose, who, albeit inconsistent, has performed pretty well. Dwayne Wade, who
He looks old.
has been such a disappointment.
He looks old. I think it hit him this year.
You think it hit him this year?
I think
he is
last year
still
he was
old with the Bulls.
I
Though.
think
He had a
last
couple
year it was
games.
showing, but this year he hit the wall. Like even the game last night against the Hornets, like he didn't look good.
Yeah, and you force if Kyle Korver wasn't hitting like he was, they wouldn't have won that game the other night against the Knicks.
Mm-hmm.
Even with LeBron doing what he did, JR still has been pretty inconsistent. Shumpert is Shumpert. I mean, Crowder hasn't been as much of an impact as I think they wanted him to. Love has done what he was supposed to do. Love has stepped up, and he's getting the numbers. He's getting double-double every night. Like, he's getting what they want from him.
I think missing TT also hurts them too, because he's been out the past couple weeks, right? And he has a couple more weeks to go before he comes back.
Well, that's the thing. They haven't, the last 3 years, they haven't had a center. Even with TT, they don't have a center.
Mozgov was huge for them.
He was. And I said it before. Like, just having that big body in the paint is huge. I don't care if he's athletic, but the thing is like, there's no way they were going to match that offer from the Lakers.
Mm-hmm.
Really, the center is probably the hardest position to get covered in the league, I would say. To find a really strong center, it's a rarity. You can find, there's plenty of really great point guards, there's plenty of really great wings, but it's hard to find a really good center.
I disagree with that.
No?
I feel like the center position has been better now than it's been probably compared to 5 years ago.
No, what he's saying is like
the position is better, but when you look at the
finding
number,
one,
yeah, like if you don't have a stud center, like it's hard to like
get one
and like replace and be able to defend one or rebound or block shots or.
There's a lot more stars at center for sure.
Yeah,
but
if you don't have
depth,
one of those stars,
there aren't as many good centers.
Exactly.
I mean,
I agree with that.
I mean, Portland found a center that wasn't even playing 30 minutes a game that much. You can find centers. It's just that how much time are you going to have patience with it trying to build them? I mean, nobody thought Capella was going to be as good as he is now. They thought he was going to be like a 4-year, 5-year project. But ever since he been backing up Dwight, he's been productive, and now he's been pretty good. You don't need a center that's going to dominate in the post anymore, although there's some post scorers in the league, which thank God, that's beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
Just get an athletic big that can block and rebound. And there's some, if you just choose, and there's some that's coming. There's definitely some centers that are coming that can produce.
Yeah. I would love to have Scalabis here so much. All right. Well, I guess that'll do it for sports today. Thanks for listening, everybody. For more, check us out on Instagram and Facebook at LaFlare_media. You can find all the rest of the podcast at LaFlare.org. Thank you guys for all your support. Get involved. Get commenting. We'd love to hear from you. We want to drive the conversation. We'll be back in a couple of weeks with our next show. Sorry, we've been a little bit inconsistent lately. It's been a lot of hustle here, but we'll definitely get back on that in the next coming weeks. In 2 weeks, we'll be coming back with you with hip-hop as well as sports, so be on the lookout for that. We'll take a break next week. So everybody, have a great rest of your week and have a great Thanksgiving.